Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. Today we're going to be taking a look at three very important organizations: the United States Peace Corps, Partnering for Peace, and Rotary International. Our guest is an expert on all three. Steve Werner, an international development consultant, is a former Peace Corps volunteer and a member of Rotary International. Steve has a 25-year career working with large non-governmental organizations such as CARE, Habitat for Humanity, Water for People, and the International Society for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect. Steve Werner, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you, Global Connections Television. I appreciate being invited.
I appreciate you being with me today. Let's jump right into the Peace Corps. You were a Peace Corps volunteer 1976 to 78 in South Korea. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy established the U.S. Peace Corps. What was the main mission of the Peace Corps, and what are their three primary goals?
Thanks, Bill. Yes, President John F. Kennedy started the Peace Corps in 1961, and his brother-in-law, Sergeant Shriver, was the first director of the Peace Corps. And their early vision for the Peace Corps was for Americans to go to countries that had a need to provide technical assistance. Those countries used to be called third world countries. Now they're called lower economically developed countries because they have rich cultures. But again, the first goal was to provide technical assistance to help the countries in areas where they thought they needed the help the most to develop economically. The second goal was for young Americans to learn about other countries and other cultures, and to help the people in those countries learn about America and Americans by having someone from America living in their village. Most of these places where Peace Corps volunteers were working had never seen an American before. And so they had many questions about America. And it was a great opportunity to talk about American culture and what America's stands for. Then the third goal was that these Americans who served as Peace Corps volunteers would come home and help inform Americans back home here in the U.S. about those countries' cultures and share their experiences so that Americans could learn a lot about other countries through the eyes and ears of these volunteers who had returned home. And by the way, that's why Sergeant Shriver insisted that we be called returned Peace Corps volunteers, because he felt that we would continue to volunteer back home using the knowledge and the skills that we developed as Peace Corps volunteers.
All three of those goals are so critical, especially that third goal to bring the experience home. In fact, we're going to go to a brief video with a colleague of yours, Philip Wilson, who is a Peace Corps volunteer, and he really brought the third goal home. And he also had a really memorable experience as a Peace Corps volunteer afterwards. Let's go and watch about a minute and 10 seconds of that, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
My name is Philip Wilson, on behalf of Partnering for Peace, an organization meant for people like me, a Rotarian and a returned Peace Corps volunteer. When I was 8, I contracted polio, resulting in the loss of the use of both of my arms. That said, my disability did not stop me from joining the Peace Corps. And from 1967 to 1969, I taught high school in East Africa in Kenya. Joining Rotary some years later got me back into that Peace Corps spirit. I found like-minded people who do great things for the community. Rotary is international, with clubs throughout the world, including developing countries. I've been back to Kenya, and have worked with local Rotarians on initiatives there. And of course, I've joined Rotary's successful assault on polio, now nearly eradicated from the planet. If you're a returned Peace Corps volunteer, or if you're someone looking to do some good in the world, I encourage you to join Rotary. It might just become your second home.
Steve, that was really interesting. And Philip really showed how, even though you might have a developmental disability or something like that, you can still play a productive role in the Peace Corps and bring this back home. He referenced the Partnering for Peace program. That is an extremely important program that you were involved in establishing. What exactly is the Partnering for Peace program?
Well, let me just start off by telling you a little bit more about Philip, because he
Mhm.
embodies what Partnering for Peace is all about. First off, Philip, uh, disability came about from having contracted polio, which is Rotary's signature program and something we've worked on steadily. And we're on the verge of eliminating polio as a scourge around the world. And so even though he had disability from his polio, he still served as a Peace Corps volunteer. And then when he came home and he learned about what Rotary was doing to combat polio, Rotary turned out to be a great avenue for him to continue his service. So Partnering for Peace is focused on a partnership between Peace Corps and Rotary. Both Peace Corps and Rotary are very pleased with this partnership and the opportunities it can provide for better service to people in need around the world. But there still needed to be an outlet like ours to help promote the partnership, because Rotary is a very large organization. We'll tell you more about that in a minute. And so is Peace Corps. Both organizations are in uh, literally over 100 countries around the world and with limited staff. So our Partnering for Peace organization are volunteers like you and me and others who help to promote this partnership. In other words, encouraging Rotary clubs to seek out Peace Corps volunteers as additional volunteers and boots on the ground. Peace Corps volunteers who see a need in their community can reach out to Rotary clubs to help them to implement that project. So it's a great partnership. And Rotary is a great continuation of service for returned Peace Corps volunteers. I touched on that a minute ago, but all of us were challenged by Sarge to come back and continue our service. And really, and I'm biased, of course, but I don't think there's any better service organization than Rotary for people to come back and continue their service back home.
It certainly provides the opportunity for anyone who wants to get involved to do so. Before I forget it, Steve, we should mention that the website for Peace Corps is www.peacecorps.gov. And
Yes.
if any of our viewers would like to go to it, it's an excellent website. Also, we want to be sure and mention Partnering for Peace, which is www.partneringforpeace.org. So be sure and tap into both or one of these websites for more information. Steve, you have been actively involved in all of these organizations for years now. And how do you see their roles? How do you see their goals as being complementary? And how
Sure.
the missions are not identical, but they certainly are all humanitarian driven.
Right. Well, it's interesting, Bill, because actually the goals are almost identical. When we had this idea to create a partnership between Peace Corps and Rotary, we looked at the strategic plans of Peace Corps and Rotary, and literally you could have taken the name Rotary out of its strategic plan and inserted Peace Corps and vice versa. When you look at the primary programs of both organizations, they're almost identical as far as focusing on education, agriculture, water and sanitation, microcredit, or microfinance, as it's also called. So both organizations are trying to their best to serve people in need around the world. So it makes sense to partner. And because Peace Corps volunteers are in villages where Rotary clubs are trying to implement programs, they can be a great help to Rotary clubs. And likewise, when a Peace Corps volunteer, say, goes to a school in some country and then they find out the school has very poor water or sanitation, they can reach out to Rotary clubs to help them to both raise funds and to implement the program. So it's a very strong program with a high likelihood of being sustainable. Now, and then return volunteers like you and I, when we first came back, we were looking for a chance to get reintegrated back in American society. We were looking for jobs. We were looking for support, and Rotary clubs can help provide that support to recently returned volunteers. And then Peace Corps is always interested in volunteers, especially volunteers with technical assistance. And Rotarians, have devoted their lives to not only service, but their careers. Rotarians have all types of skills in accounting, management, other business skills, agriculture, engineers, and those are skills that you can continue to do as a volunteer through the Peace Corps. It's a great way to provide ongoing volunteer service is by joining Peace Corps. And you can do that as a 2-year volunteer, or you can do it as a short-term Peace Corps response volunteer.
Or you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We'd invite our viewers to go to our website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to view previous programs. Also, if you're involved with a PBS or a community access television station, or perhaps an educational institution that has an intra-campus television hookup, or you just have a computer, you like our shows, and you want to share them, please feel free to do so. Global Connections Television is provided at no cost as a public service to help us better understand international issues and how they impact our lives. Today, we're talking with an international development consultant, Steve Werner, who is a member of Rotary International, a former Peace Corps volunteer, and a person who was very instrumental in launching the Partners for Peace program. Steve, we're covering a wide range of issues here. We put out 2 of the websites already. I want to be sure and get the Rotary.org website out so that if any of our viewers would like to go to see if there's a Rotary Club in your area, and in all probability there is, because Rotary has 1.2 million Rotarians in over 35,000 clubs around the world in over 200 countries and territories. So check out www.rotary.org to tap into perhaps looking at becoming a Rotarian. This is an extremely important organization. Steve, we have talked about partnering and putting projects together. There's a fellow you've been involved with for years, Ross Fieser, who is a volunteer in the Dominican Republic, and he has a very interesting book program. So why don't we go to that, take a look at about 2 minutes of it, and we'll come back and talk about it.
En la arena y la confundieron como una sirena y la confundieron como una sirena que no es tan linda, que no es tan bella y la confundieron como una sirena y por bella.
Come and be here.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to allow us.
The books have been a huge benefit for the schools, for the students, for the teachers, for the volunteers who now have resources to teach literacy. The Peace Corps volunteers really are a catalyst to get the books in the hands of children. So the donation is to the schools, but oftentimes the schools are unclear, or they don't maybe have a plan to when the students are going to use the books or how the students are going to use the books. And because so many of the Peace Corps volunteers have grown up reading and learning to have and just have had access to so many books, that they can really share that knowledge and that experience with the teachers, librarians, support staff, and make sure that the kids get time with these books.
Me encanta leer cuentos, sí, misterios.
Hubiera algo de comer.
Steve, that was a very interesting program. It's in full confession, as you mentioned, I was in the Peace Corps also, and I spent 2 years in the Dominican Republic. And so when I see the merengue, it always brings back fond memories of 2 years in the Dominican Republic. and also many other activities at that time. How did this book project develop, and what role has it played in helping to provide educational tools to children in the Dominican Republic?
Well, I'm so glad you showed that video, Bill, of the Give a Book program in the Dominican Republic. It actually is an outgrowth of a program called Give a Book, which was started by a friend of ours through Partnering for Peace. And many Rotary clubs are helping the Give a Book program to create libraries. So through Rotary, we were able to bring this idea to Peace Corps volunteers who are assigned to schools. And it actually started in Costa Rica. And Rotarians would collect the books that were put together in as a wish list from a Peace Corps volunteer in a school, ship them to the school, and then go to the school and work with the Peace Corps volunteers to set up the library, to catalog the books, just like we do in the US through our library system. And then also to show the students how to use the books to further their education. As you can imagine, in most developing countries, they don't have a lot of funds. They don't have money for libraries. There's not a lot of books to even use in the classroom. So these libraries have been a great source of help to the Peace Corps volunteers to do a much better job of teaching in their schools. And then Ross, being on our board of the Partnering for Peace, and he had also served in the Dominican Republic like you did. He had a contact there, and he saw a need, and he reached out to the Peace Corps office in the Dominican Republic, and they were very excited about bringing the program there. So it's also a great example of how Partnering for Peace is able to take successful projects and help replicate them in other countries. And that's happening through all the different areas, whether it's a water and sanitation project, a literacy project, or some other kind of program. And so once one Rotary Club and some Peace Corps volunteers have some success, the word spreads, and before you know it, we can help encourage bringing that program to other countries because everybody likes to have a good model to follow. One other thing about Give a Book program in Costa Rica that I'd like to highlight is that the Rotarians who went there and helped support the development of libraries, one of the Rotarians had retired from higher education. And when he learned that Costa Rica did not have an international baccalaureate program, he worked with both Peace Corps and the local Ministry of Education to start the first international baccalaureate program in Costa Rica. So again, a good example. The Peace Corps volunteer was teaching in the school, saw a need, reached out to Rotary, Rotary Club responded, but from that, outgrew a new program to create international baccalaureate program in the country of Costa Rica, which Peace Corps volunteers, quite honestly, in that country at that time, did not have the skills to start that program, but Rotarians did. So it's another great example of how one project can lead to other projects getting started and expanding on the original idea.
And it also shows how important it is to team up and work together with a variety of different organizations. I know you alluded to it earlier. You referenced the largest international health program ever undertaken, the Polio Plus program. And that was launched by Rotary International back in the mid 80s. And in 1987, they went to the United Nations World Health Organization and the UN Children's Fund and the Centers for Disease Control to secure their support and to get them involved as partners. And now the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is participating. And we've gone from back in the 80s of 350,000 cases of polio a year down to under 100. And of course, the COVID situation has made it a little worse, but still, it's a remarkable program, and it's just on the cusp of being achieved. It is absolutely so critical to eliminate the scourge of polio, and we're just about there. You're Rotarians. I know my Rotary Club's very actively involved. You're Rotarians, and all the folks in Partnering for Peace are involved, I would imagine.
Yes. So many of our members have gone on polio eradication campaigns in other countries. Our clubs continue to donate. so the very last bit of polio can be eradicated. And it has been a little bit of a challenge over the years because polio does um, um, come up in a wild form, which then can be retransmitted back to people who have not been immunized. So even though the goal is to immunize every child in the world, if you don't keep doing that, it can come back. And that's in some of the more remote areas where there's conflict, it's very hard to get in and immunize children on an annual basis. So that's presented a little bit more of a challenge. But like you said, the very last cases are being found, and we hope that in a year or two that polio will be totally eradicated.
Well, that's absolutely true. And you've got to eliminate the virus completely. If not, it will resurrect itself like the phoenix bird out of the ashes of defeat and come back and stalk the world again. So it's so important to do that. But
Yes.
Steve, the groups that you're involved with are so critically important. I know we were talking about that third goal of the Peace Corps, to bring the experience at home. And had I not been in the Peace Corps and really gotten put on an international track, I would never have gotten involved in activities I have been, for example, doing the Global Connections television program, setting up the Office for Federal and International Relations in the Kentucky legislature, being a member of Rotary International, being on your board, partnering for peace. But these groups are so important and shows what we can do when we work together, because we all have a role to play in helping to create this better world, and we have to work together. But in the last 30 seconds or so that we have, what is your final message, closing message to everyone to get them involved as you have been?
Sure. Well, I'd be delinquent if I didn't point out that Rotary clubs and returned Peace Corps volunteers are also working back home. Because we understand the cultures, we speak the language in many cases, we can help with refugee resettlement programs or other types of programs where a project is being done right in your backyard and you need somebody with some cultural experience to help out. And if people want to get involved with Partnering for Peace or support our efforts, if you're a Rotarian, if you're a returned Peace Corps volunteer, please do go to partneringforpeace.org website, and you can get a lot of information about the projects we've supported and information on how you can get involved. And we would really love to hear from you, because we've found 75 projects so far that Rotary clubs and Peace Corps volunteers have done together.
Steve, Werner, thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you again, Bill, and thank you, Global Connections Television. We appreciate you doing the show and helping us to get the message out.
We'll do an update down the road. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.